So kata. Why do we still do it? With all of the changes in the world, all the ways that we train, all the combat sports that we have, and all the different things that we do now, is kata needing to be replaced? Is it something that should be changed out for something else? Well, today we're going to talk about why I still teach kata. Hey, what's up? I'm Ken, this is kenfuTV, and each week I release videos in the martial arts, philosophy, technique, training, that sort of thing. So that's the kind of thing you're into. I hope you stick around. Hope that you subscribe and jump in the comments and join the community and the conversations that we have each week. And if this has value to you, I hope you share it with somebody. Some of these videos end up being longer than the average attention span, so if that's you and you want to jump ahead to the part that you're interested in, hit that video description and you'll be able to jump right to the part that you're interested in. So kata. A lot of contention about why kata would continue to be trained, even though the pandemic kind of brought a resurgence of kata. Some styles, jiu-jitsu being a notable one, starting to do kata when maybe they didn't used to. They're going to call it solo drilling. They're going to call it these solo forms that let them run through their drills and rep and all that. It's kata. A little bit. Not exactly, though. So they started to do these kind of kata-like things. But the truth is, kata is more than that. And so the obvious thing is, I still teach kata. What I want to explain is why I do and what I think that I get out of it by doing so. So maybe we start, as I often do, by defining the thing. If we define it, then we can talk about it in greater detail. So kata itself, kata is a solo form practiced to encapsulate a fighting system, a complete system, a moving syllabus, so to speak. It is a collection of examples of combative principles, strategies, and methods, primarily aimed at a self-defense context, at least when I speak of karate and taekwondo and other types of martial arts that typically are known for having kata. Let's define a little bit of what kata is not. Kata is not a fighting sequence. It is not a choreographed fight that you study to become good at doing. People often contend that specifically because they go, a fight's never going to look like a kata, and they're right. It's never going to look like a kata. It was never meant to. It is not the secret to the martial arts. It's not some special thing. It's not the answer. It's merely a reference point. I find it to be a really good reference point for passing things on, but we'll get onto that here in a minute. Kata is also not concrete and exclusive to only the things shown inside of the kata. It was never meant to be that limited. And lastly, kata does not replace drilling with a partner and sparring and working live with another human being or multiple human beings. It doesn't do that. It is meant to be a part of the greater whole. Next week, I'm going to talk about how I teach kata and how it fits into what I do. So be sure to stick around for that. Subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss it when it comes out. But today we're going to talk about why I think kata needs to continue to be inside the martial arts. Even though there's a lot of people who think that maybe it's time for it to fall away and just be a remnant of the past that's not needed anymore, that served its purpose already. First up, I think kata is a brilliant, absolutely brilliant method of storing a syllabus for an art or a fighting system. I personally believe there is no better way to record physical act than through a physical recording. Being a person who has had opportunity to train off of notes and to look through things, we've all been there. We've had the handbooks, or we've had notes from our teachers, or different things like that, or even our own notes, and this concept of going through the notes and having the ability to process and understand what's actually meant and what's supposed to be conveyed in a singular perspective defined by one person who was writing these notes is incredibly difficult. There's something about moving that helps jog the memory and put things together in a much better way. When I say store the syllabus, I think it's important to realize that very often, if not exclusively, kata is designed to pass on or was. Keep in mind, if you're working modern kata that were created by people later on who maybe didn't understand what I'm talking about when it comes to how I believe kata is designed to work, then some of those katas might not follow these rules. I know that I designed my own kata at one point years ago, and it did not follow these rules. It did not have this stuff to it, and that's why I scrapped it a long time ago, but it's why I would not teach it or even worry about trying to remember it now. Because if it doesn't follow what I'm about to say, it's not really doing what kata is supposed to do, and in that case, it possibly should be gotten rid of. I believe that kata maintains not only a collection of these examples, but an order in which to study and understand them. Combative principles and strategies and methods, things that define how we approach what we do, should be taught in an order. The most efficient way to teach is to put that into an order and work through them in that way. And that is something that we see in every education system, is the idea that some things need to be learned before other things. And I believe kata does that. Now, when I say kata, I mean a kata, with notable exceptions of things like the Pinan or Heian katas, or the Hachi katas. They're ones that were kind of designed to be a set, or at least broken into a set specifically at a certain time. Otherwise, most katas stand alone. So when I say kata, I'm typically referring to a single kata performed in the way that it is performed. I believe very strongly that kata, as you go from the beginning to the end, things get progressively more difficult. They approach basic concepts and strategies at the beginning, and they start dealing with the questions of how do you manage if situations more like this, or if this happens, or if it's countered in this way. And those answers become part of that kata as well. And it's a structured learning process. I think a syllabus is the best word. You know, when I was taught, it's told this is the textbook. In a lot of ways, I disagree with that now, just because I don't think it's the most accurate word. I do still agree with the idea of it. But I think a syllabus makes the most sense, because a syllabus defines, here's what you're going to learn. And then if you kind of expand that syllabus a little bit, kind of into textbook territory, then what you get are examples of what's going to happen in each of those sections. So you have a syllabus defining what that whole structured learning process will look like, and then examples to go with that, so that you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen. To me, that's exactly what a kata is. It's laying out, we're going to go from here to here, and we're going to go through these things. And this is an example of what we might look at here in order to express what's happening. But at the end of the day, the kata is not giving you the concrete, this is. It's saying, this is a way that you could. A case in point being something like a throw. Well, there's no one way to throw somebody. The kata may include a throw, but then when you break into the principles of why that throw works, maybe it uses the principles of lifting, right? It's already tackling the principle of an object will topple if its center of gravity is moved outside of its base area, but then the lifting throw is defining, I'm going to lift to get the center of gravity out. So now that kind of defines what is or is not a thing that's happening here. That's going to start to imply certain types of leverage and body position and how things might have to be in order to make something be successful. And the kata may give one or two examples, but in no way was that ever designed to be, these are the only two ways you'll ever throw. Instead, it's, here's some examples of how this principle works, and now go and explore and learn how to expand beyond this and do more than this, now that you've got an understanding of how these principles are applied in a combative situation. So that ability for it to work from a start to finish and kind of define the entirety, the grand scale, the whole scope of what's being taught is critical to the whole process. I think it's really important that it's clear how this should be done, and that's what I'll be talking about in next week's video with the How I Teach Kata. I think there are very important things that I've defined kind of the way kata works a little bit, but I haven't really defined how you might approach managing it that way. So let's talk briefly on some benefits for kata itself. First, it's a physical practice. So to work, to get up and move around and go through these motions is a physical thing. And if you do it hard and do it with power and do it in these ways, then it is cardiovascular, it is strength building, it's balance building, it's got a lot of physical attributes that are developed, which are great for solo training and practice, and really good, especially as a teacher, it's really good to be able to give somebody something that I know is going to develop good things in them, that they can take home and do when they don't have a partner. Training time in the dojo ideally should be spent with partners or with people, which is a thing that we don't always have access to, so that's what that time should be used for. And then kata, by taking it home, you've got the ability to continue repping and understanding and processing, and importantly, visualizing without the need of having a partner around. And so you continue to develop those things. As you get older, you can do it with less vigor and still continue to move your body, and so it still has some general health benefits. One of the other benefits that I think is really important is that the kata itself jogs the memory, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, jogs the memory in a way that notes don't. You start looking, you're like, okay, what were we talking about here? I don't really remember what this was supposed to mean or whatever. sometimes performing the kata, you're doing the kata, and you go, oh, I suddenly remember that I haven't worked this type of skill or this technique or this method in a while, and I should. Maybe it's the answer to some things that are going on right now, and I need to rep that. That comes back to that syllabus. Here in a little bit, I'll talk about why I think we shouldn't get rid of kata in favor of something newer. Lastly, in the benefits, I think kata reveals new things over time because it's an example, because it's representing examples of larger things, principles, strategies, methods. The one thing that can naturally happen over time is as you continue to train and have new understandings of your body, the way you move, the way fights happen, the way you go in sparring, the way you work in drills, your height, your weight, your whatever it is, as you understand these things and you get into different circumstances, different situations, people counter the things that you do, and then you've got to learn new things. Looping back through the kata sometimes can reveal new things, new lessons that you didn't notice before because of new context. For example, for me, when I first started, it was heavily striking based when I started training. And so the kata revealed a lot of striking based principles and things like that. But then as I went back, as I was doing more jiu-jitsu and I was doing more grappling, then suddenly I realized that there was a whole host of lessons that were in there that were there the whole time that I just didn't see because I wasn't looking at them through that lens. And then people will talk about introducing weapons and looking at the kata with the concept of weapons in mind or different things. As you go through life and things are different, then when you do the kata, you might see different things and pull different things out of it. That's a really cool thing that I can't say my notebook has ever done for me. Okay, and finally, why do I not think that we should replace kata with something else? Truly because I don't believe that anything does what kata does. I don't believe that there's something else out there that does what kata is doing. Do I believe that there's better ways to train? Yes. And I believe that you should be doing those with your kata, not separately. Your kata should not replace those. Do I believe that there's ways to improve people and build more progress faster, more efficiently? Absolutely. And do I believe that we should be doing those things? 100%. But most of those things that we think about, well, I should be doing these types of drills in order to become a better fighter. I should be doing this kind of conditioning in order to become a better fighter. I should be doing these kinds of things. And I continue to say in order to become a better fighter, because that's one of the main places that people come at this from, as they go, well, kata doesn't make you a good fighter. You don't use kata when you fight. You do. You do use kata when you fight. Just as you used your math textbook when you apply math in your life. Without that textbook, you wouldn't have learned the math. So every time you apply math, you kind of have some gratitude for the textbook that you had to look at and the teacher that taught you the math that you do. And the kata's the same way. Every time you do something that you've drilled and learned and combatively applied that came out of that kata, then you're doing the kata. Everybody wants to hang up on doing a sequence exactly as a sequence goes, and it was never meant to be a sequence of things that will match. It never happens that way. The guys who invented these katas or designed or developed these katas, they didn't believe that. They didn't think that's what was going to happen. So it was never meant to do it. And where people started thinking that this is how kata works, I don't know, but it's not. So I think it's important that you continue to do these things, these drills, these trainings, all these different things that you do. But the problem is there's nothing about individual drills that can be really, really good, or individual skills that you train, or individual methods that you use to become better that actually provide a hierarchy of learning or prioritization or an entire scope of what's being taught. They don't have that. Because if you started saying that I'm going to take this drill where we fight like this, and I clear your hands out of the way so I can punch you, and I clear, and then you put your hand, I clear this one and I punch you, and then if you hit high, I'm going to cover up this way and I'm going to hit you this way, and I'm going to, if you bring up high, I'm going to come down low, and I build all these drills to do all these individual things so that I learn all of these individual skills. Well, then the only way to remember all of that stuff and make sure that all of it gets passed on to the next person is to start training that drill as one long drill or long sequence, and then suddenly you've got a kata again. That's all that's happening. It's just helping you remember the whole. And later, when you pass this knowledge to someone else, and not everybody will, and if you have no intention to, then maybe remembering all of this isn't important, but it still will make you a better fighter to continue to have knowledge of the things that you don't encounter often, because it doesn't mean you won't encounter them ever. But if you intend to teach and pass on this knowledge, then the kata provides a structure and an outline of all of the knowledge that needs to be passed on, all of the areas that need to be taught, the scope of the skills that need to be learned. The kata helps do that. A really good drill doesn't usually include the scope of what needs to be passed to someone, but kata does. So I think it's important that we keep it. I think it's important that it sticks around. Now, that said, I think it's important that you train it right, that you train it well. And that's what we're talking about next week. Let's do some comments from last week, and then we'll wrap this video up. Okay, we're talking comments from last week. To be more specific, we're talking comments from 2 weeks ago. Last week's video was on the Daikukai Nafurikake, and I didn't include comments from the week before, which was why drills are not important. Or at least the drill itself is not important. My favorite comment from that video was Tim Jurgens saying, "There is one thing I would offer that you did not touch on that I think has some value. One skill that we take away from a drill or kata is the ability to control our body. Kinesthetic control allows us to hit what we are targeting. Kata that have precise form provide a litmus test for that control. If the movement is slightly off or took a slightly different arc of movement, we can see that as we are doing the movement against the standard. In so doing that, we benefit from the feedback and progressively improve our control. Of course, that is just one aspect of such a drill. If we only focused on that, we would be leaving so much on the table. And I think that your video does a great job of encouraging people to look just beyond the perfecting the form for the sake of perfection. There is, however, some value in the challenge of testing ourselves against a standard, and drills can help with that." I 100% agree. I believe that kata is an excellent example of that, and drills do have that functionality too, and especially solo drills. I think specifically solo drills benefit us in the way that you described, that kinesthetic control where we are really dialing in our precision. Falls into the old adage, aim small, miss small. When you really work to precisely do the things that you do, then you become very accurate, very specific. And when you are that precise, everything that you do becomes better. It improves because of it. That introspection while you train is huge. And so for that, I completely agree with you, Tim, and I thank you for commenting on that, because I did forget to mention that. I do think it's important. I do think that it's one of the most valuable things that we get out of our solo training, and we get it out of our partner training too. Maybe I'll make a video going into it a little bit deeper, but my thought's gonna fall on the lines of solo training is us being aware of ourselves, and partner training is us being aware of the environment and the scenario, the situation that we're in. And I believe that solo drills specifically build that kinesthetic control that you're talking about. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that comment. That was perfect. It was exactly what we needed to hear. And this is exactly why I love that you guys get involved. So until next time, let's jump back to the video. Okay, that's it for this week. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about kata. So I want you to hit those comments. I want you to tell me if you feel that there are things that I'm saying that ring true. Awesome. If you disagree, even more awesome. Hit those comments. Let me know. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why kata still fits. And if you don't think it does, tell me that. Tell me why you think it should go away and how you think we replace some of the things that I talked about that I think kata does with something else. How do we do it? I'm all ears. I'm not locked into kata. I just believe that it continues to have a function for me. If I get shown something better, I'm probably going to lock onto it, because at the end of the day, I believe in passing on knowledge in the best way possible. And right now, I still think kata does that. But what do you think? Hit the comments. Let's talk about it. I want to hear your thoughts. If you like these kind of videos, if you like what I'm doing, you can subscribe to this channel right here. If you want to see a playlist of these videos, I've got one for you right here. And here's a couple more videos that you might like right here. I'm Ken. This is kenfuTV, and I'll catch you in the next one.